talking to get 10 marks. I get 1. I'm talking about something important. Anyway, we're going to be talking about mucosal defense today, and you can see the objective here. This is a cartoon or whatever from a pathology book. I think when you're going to get that test next year, probably, when we have a PhD or the year after, I'm not sure. I think next year is the second. Anyway, gastric mucosal integrity is determined by a balance between forces that are trying to injure it, or aggressive forces, or very damaging forces, okay? So there's always going to be damaging forces. And it's a balance against whatever the gastric mucosa can arm itself with and provide a defense or defensive force, okay? All right, so we're going to look at all of these, and let's start with the damaging force. The major one you already know is acid and pepsin, okay? It used to be a long time ago that there was a saying, no acid, no ulcer. Well, it's called peptic ulcers, okay? That's what it's called, PUD, peptic ulcer, and that's because pepsin needs acid to work. It's the optimal pH for pepsin. It activates pepsin, so it goes arm in hand with acid, and that's why if you target acid, you kill 2 birds with 1 stone, so to speak. Very acid, pepsin won't work. Okay, that was a long time ago. All right, this is I think you can find this on the internet, Google, or whatever. There's a high school experiment, and it also they had test tubes here, and they put, I think they chicken, I'm not sure, some piece of meat, right, inside this test tube, and then they added hydrochloric acid. In this test tube, the same piece of chicken, they added pepsin. Here, same piece of chicken, and they added pepsin plus acid, okay? 24 hours later, they come back, and the chicken's still here. Not a problem. But here, some of it's breaking down, okay? And then, along with acid, they couldn't even eat a chicken anymore, okay? So acid and pepsin, the low pH of the stomach, you have pepsin, which will degrade peptide bonds, right? And no peptidase, internal bonds are moving down, and acid denatures the protein, right? So it gives it accessibility to all these internal bonds. Some people, well, let me see one example that most people use is collagen. You had collagen in fibrous protein biochemical. It's a triple helix, type triple helix, so it's very hard for pepsin to get in, and by denaturing it, it opens it up. That's a good example. Acid in the stomach also kills bacteria. So it can destroy tissue, kill living organisms. And we know why doesn't it? Your stomach is no different than that piece of chicken. It's tissue, right? And yet, none of us, or very few of us, are going to have ulcers. So there's a defensive force that come into play to prevent the gastric mucosa from being eaten, like in this experiment here. Okay. Let's take a look at those, and sometimes it's referred to, depending on the textbook you're reading, gastric mucosal barrier, things of that nature, okay? You'll see that. And the major forces are the defensive forces that would be mucus, bicarbonate. Obviously, you want to neutralize the acid, right? Something called restitution, mucosal circulation, and prostaglandin. We'll cover it. If you haven't had prostaglandin yet, don't worry about These defensive forces are stratified, okay, different levels of protection. Okay. You have physical forces, basically that's the material that's in the lumen, okay. Then you have epithelial defense, and that is the realm of the epithelial layer, the cell layer itself. Remember, it's only a single cell layer. And then finally, if these breach, you go get past these, you have mucosal blood flow. That's the last line of defense. And that's why I have here. If this system breaks down, this one comes into play. If this system breaks down, your last line of defense is circulation, okay? And you want to, the ultimate goal is to prevent mucosal injury, inflammation, and then prevent the spread of inflammation into the bloodstream, okay? Called sepsis. We'll come back to that. Pre-epithelial. I can't help it. You gotta say pre-epithelial. It's going to be mucus and bicarb. So mucus can be a physical barrier. It's got to be going to limit penetration by various particles that may be toxic, and more importantly, any ingested bacteria. Okay. Bicarbonate, well, we know what it's going to do. It's going to neutralize that. Right? And it prevents the cells from being acidified. Let's take a look at that. Okay, here they call it a gastric Mucus-Bicarbonate barrier. Okay. And I added here a powder layer, inner layer of mucus. I'll come back to that. But this is their mucus layer. And I do this in these PowerPoint bacteria. You want more bacteria, just copy paste. Anyway, most of your bacteria, we'll show you later, are going to be trapped in the outer layer. It's not going to get through to the inner layer. And I'll show you that in the next slide. So it's a physical barrier. And this slide is sort of a repeat from the very first lecture where we talked about mucus, GI tract. And it's a dynamic layer. You have mucin being secreted. And it's secreted in form of a thick gel. You know, moves out. And I think I showed you yesterday a slide of histamine-induced mucus secretion in the stomach on the end. It covers the whole stomach. And then this mucus, thick adherent mucus layer, gives rise to the rather loose mucus layer, and most people think it's due to proteolytic cleavage of the peptide portion of the glycoprotein, okay, protein, a lot of sugar. So it becomes loose, okay. So bacteria have no problem entering into this area, okay. And it also serves as a nutrient, so they can degrade. They have mucolytic enzymes. You don't have a problem. So for them, it's a perfect place to be, okay? Not really, but you know. Then this mucus layer, and they call it loose, because experimentally they just removed it by washing or suction, but they could not remove the inner layer. It really attached very strongly to the epithelium. So when you have motor activity, you know, remember the stomach, those contractions, the antral contraction, they increase in strength in the approach pylori, and then they squirt whatever is there. So all this upper layer of mucus is removed with motility, and it removes the bacteria too, which is the bacteria downstream. And remember the MMC in between meals, the migrating motility complex, it's moving all this loose mucus from everywhere, all the way down to the colon for most of your bacteria. Okay. The inner layer is not rapidly removed by motility or experimental guidance. Okay, that's pretty straightforward, right? That's a pretty big defense. through this stick. This is like, okay, they can get through and move around. Okay. The other part of mucus-bicarbonate there is bicarbonate secretion. Okay, and here this is I have it occurring in the inner layer because that's the thicker layer, and bicarbonate does not diffuse very rapidly through it, and acid does not come in very rapidly. Okay, so we can take a look at that. But what it does, because the bicarb being secreted here, the pH at the surface of the epithelium is close to neutral. You know, maybe 6.5 to 7. Even though the lumen, remember basal acid secretion, low volume, but very low pH, 1.5 to 2, here it happens 2. So it creates this gradient, pH gradient. Higher at the surface of the epithelium, lower in the lumen, where the acid is. I know you don't like transport, but this is pretty easy. And basically what you're dealing with is bicarb secretion into mucus. Guess what? You can use an exchanger for that, and that's the way it happens. And your favorite exchanger, chloride bicarb, anion for anion. Now you need bicarb. So the best way of bringing bicarb in is a co-transport, sodium bicarbonate. Now here, when you're transporting, you want to use opposite charge to keep electroneutrality. Okay? We'll cover the same situation in the pancreas, where you lose nothing by sort of, I don't think you really have to memorize it, as long as you understand these transports, you can put it together. Now, the other places you can get bicarb from, if you're familiar with carbonic anhydride, that's all there, okay? And the cell has a choice to either move bicarb or moves proton. In the stomach, it was moving proton, right? Moving it out in exchange for potassium, the proton pump. In the pancreas, you'll see it's going to move the same thing as this, it's going to move bicarb. Anyway, you generate bicarb here, which can be used by this exchanger. And you have the same exchanger here as you have here. Okay. So if you're using this to any extent, and that's why I have this here, because it's carbonic anhydride in these exchangers, then the excess acid, okay, you got to get rid of it. And so this is the housekeeper, right? It exchanges it prevents protons from building up any way you want to look at it, okay? So it moves it out. Okay? That's pretty good. And that's the only transport of the whole lecture. How about that? They're not that hard. You're going to see about 3, 4, you're going to see them more time that you may have been a little frightened in the beginning, but you won't be toward the end. You're getting better at this, right? It's getting easier, I hope. Anyway, now let's say you break through the system. Somehow, something gets through. What are you left with? A single epithelial cell layer. That's not much of a defense. Your skin has multiple, right? It's exposed to the outside. But you got to remember, the GI tract's outside too. Technically speaking, it's outside your body. So you have tight junction, and these are depicted here as circles. And that's going to prevent paracellular flux or movement, between cells. Okay? So that's important. And then should you injure it, this epithelium can repair so fast to prevent anything from getting through, okay? Let's take a look at that. And this is the role of the tight junction. You had this in cell biology, right, or something. Tight junctions, you know they hold cells together, right? Yeah. This is your normal tight junction. This cartoon shows these things bouncing off. It can't get through, be it bacteria or toxins or whatever. And here, the tight junction have been breached. In other words, they've been loosened by some toxins. Bacteria can do that. for is to start injuring the cells, they'll start separating, okay? So the tight junction will open up a paracellular pathway, okay? It's the major defense against paracellular movement, tight junction. So once this happens, material starts entering the interstitium, and you just, well, I'll show you a macrophage here, but some T cells like a dendritic cell. You can go down on the PowerPoint if you're curious, but it's inflammation basically. And you know what happens if inflammation spreads systemically, right? It's called sepsis. Have you heard of that? I think a long time ago we used to call it blood poisoning. But basically it's inflammation going into your body, which your GI tract is trying to prevent. Okay. All right, let's say this breaks down. Okay, you have this, and the cells start to die. There's something called restitution. And this is a nice little cartoon. It's a lightning bolt or whatever. There's injury. Doesn't matter. These cells have been injured, right? They're going to come off. Okay? They're dead. So now you've got an exposed basement membrane, no tight junction, things can get through. So the epithelium itself, the adjacent cells, the cells adjacent to the injury, that they're still viable, they're still alive, they change phenotype. They become, rather than columnar, become microcirculation. And that's shown here with these little cells. And they start moving very fast and basically reseal the defect. It's not completely normal, but you see they're not columnar. But what you've done is reestablish tight junction and prevent anything else. This happens within minutes. And sometimes like GI surgeons don't care that much about removing epithelium because they know it's going to heal. All right. So these cells, as you can tell, they're not columnar anymore. They're non-functional. They're like a Band-Aid. Okay. To have complete healing, this is complete. This is a villus. Obviously, it's not gastric mucosal, intestinal. Characteristic of intestinal mucosa, but the same thing happens in the stomach. It's just easier to show in a villus, okay? And here we have injury of the epithelium. You see, epithelium is the tip of the villus is denuded. There's no more epithelium there. And then within minutes, you have restitution. But these cells that are here are flat. All they did was within sometimes it passes 15 minutes, depending on the extent of injury, a half hour is repaired. Okay? But to get complete healing, that is to get functional epithelium back, you have to wait for the stem cell in the crypt area, okay, or in the gastric pit to multiply, come up to the surface. You see, they're starting to come up here, and finally you have functional epithelium. This can take how long? Well, we already know. Remember epithelial cell turnover? 3 to 5 days in humans, okay? But you don't want to wait 3 or 5 days to have a breach in the epithelium. So restitution, repair it very rapidly. The phenotypic change from columnar, functional, absorptive cells, or whatever, secretory cells, to migratory cells, okay? Okay, let's say everything breaks down here. You got what's left? Sure. Yeah. So you have what we call mucosal circulation. We'll talk about blood. And basically what it's trying to do is what's coming through is acid and pepsin, right? So that old adage of no acid, no ulcer, which is ultimately what you're trying to prevent an ulcer. Because if you get rid of acid, pepsin won't work, right? Pepsin needs an acidic pH to be operative. So if you neutralize the acid, you're accomplishing quite a bit here. You want to know this line? Come on, it's pretty, but you don't have to know it. But I'll go over it real quick. The red is arterial supply. If you have the circulation yet, well, actually, this is the microcirculation. This is in the mucosa, okay? So the red is your arterial supply. It's in the submucosa of your arteries come in, and it'll go up. This will be a gastric pit. And you see these aggressive-looking little blue cells? We know what they are, right? They're parietal cells, right? And that's why they're showing you that. And then the blood flow will go up here. Then they'll form these honeycomb area over these gastric pits, okay? And here's the gastric pit. Now it's showing you the venous vein come down, back through the submucosa out. This is the blow up of the area. The arterial supply coming up, okay? And up here, and they form that honeycomb up there. But remember the parietal cells. They make acid, right? Well, you know, when they're putting out acid into the lumen, what are they transporting out the other end? Remember that? To get rid of the bicarb, they're moving bicarb out. Remember alkaline dye? Right. They're moving acid here. That's the acid flow up here to the lumen. But for every proton they put out, they're moving a bicarb into the blood. Guess where that bicarb ends up? And that's why they call it bicarbonate flux. Comes up here, and now your surface mucus cells are using your sodium bicarb co-transporter, everything else to move bicarb into the mucus layer. So while it's making acid, it's also strengthening the mucus bicarbonate barrier, okay? Plus it comes in here and dilutes things so that anything break down. So that's the importance of mucosal circulation. Now here you have an actual, how this works in a way. You have this breach in the epithelial lining. And of course you got proton pepsin, acid pepsin. It's going to work. It's going to cause damage. So this is the same CGRP neuron we talked about, gastric secretion, remember? And I showed an arrow when we were talking about how this works, because this system, if the activation is severe enough, lower the pH, then your brain is notified. And what does that mean? It's called pain. All of a sudden you know something's wrong. And the only reason you know something's wrong is the sensory nerves told you there's something wrong. But ordinarily you wouldn't know. Okay? Anyway, these CGRP neurons produce several things. One is a hyperemia. A hyperemia, you have the next part of that. Just all that means is increase in blood flow. Okay, so it's going to come in, blood flow, it's going to wash out everything. And don't forget, blood has bicarb in it. Okay, so any bicarb that comes into this interstitium is going to neutralize this acid. Okay, now what does that mean? The other thing that this neuron does, by the way, it's through nitric oxide. You know that symbol? Nitric oxide? Yeah, you know by now. Nitric oxide is a vasodilator. It also stimulates mucus and bicarb secretion. So all this comes into play at the last line of defense, because now you breach this and you're activating the sensory neurons. If it's severe enough, you're going to know, and you're going to take an antacid or something, because you're going to know something went wrong. And all this helps with restitution and ultimate healing. Obviously, you're not going to get healing if the environment is acidic. Okay, so all this does is try to neutralize things. The mucus protects the sensitive layer, trying to heal. Perfect. This is a little experiment in mice. I wouldn't worry about it, but I will tell you what it is. They genetically deleted this animal of the gene that makes CGRP. So they don't have these neurons. But they don't have the neurotransmitter. It doesn't work. They can't make it. They don't have the gene for it. So the wild type, of course, can do that. So in the wild type, they measure ulcer over days, and you see the ulcer healing, okay, 5 days, but 3 days actually got when the epithelial cell turnover, the ulcer is healed. The size of the ulcer has gone down. Over here, the size of the ulcer doesn't go down very well. And that's because they don't have the support of the circulation and the mucus-bicarbonate protection. Okay? That's all I'm saying. It's in the notes. Prostaglandins, it's kind of sad. You're going to get that next semester, prostaglandins. So we're not going to get into biochemistry, but it impacts these prostaglandins, impact all of the defensive forces. Okay. And also they're going to lead into one of the major causes of peptic ulcer disease. What do prostaglandins do? Well, if you have prostaglandins, let's say increased prostaglandins, they increase mucus and bicarbonate. Okay? You don't even need those for this. They inhibit varietal cell acid secretion. Right? They're turning off the acid. It's an aggressive factor, right? They also are vasodilators, so they maintain mucosal blood flow, circulation, maintain that bicarbonate flux up to the surface epithelium. They also help promote restitution. And you add well, experimentally, if you add prostaglandin, these cells migrate much faster and repair, make the band-aid much clearer. Okay, so prostaglandins are involved in all of the defensive organs, and they inhibit one of the aggressive organs. Okay, so they're really good for us, right? You haven't had chemistry, so we'll come to that. All right, so this is again just an expansion of the previous slide. And again, we're talking about an imbalance. So once you knock out this balance of aggressive and defensive forces, you're going to have some dysfunction. And depending on the severity, you're going to get peptic ulcer disease. That's what it's called, PED. You've heard of that before. You've heard of ulcers before, right? Gastric ulcer and stuff. All right, we'll look at that. So the major player will be H. pylori. Have you had that biochemistry? Or if you don't have micro till next year, we'll go over that. It's a bug, microbiology. NSAID, we'll cover that. Aspirin and NSAID, we'll cover that. And hyperosmosis. But if we're going to increase the aggressive factors. Okay, impaired defenses. This is common in ICU units, stress ulcers, they're called. But these people are under stress, they're sick, and they have a tendency to their blood flow is reduced to the GI tract. And the GI tract is one of the first vascular beds to shut down during hypertension or shock. So they'll clamp down the GI tract before they stop the circulation to your brain or your heart. Obviously, you have to stay alive. And who cares about the GI tract, right? To repair itself real quick. So the first thing to go is the GI tract. We'll cover that in cardiovascular. But anyway, if you reduce blood flow, that's an impairment of the defense. You look back to pylori. Have you heard of it? Has anybody heard of it? No. H. pylori, well, one of the people who found H. pylori first discovered it, they got a Nobel Prize for that because they didn't think the bacteria could even survive in the stomach with that. Okay, both bacteria don't. Even Helicobacter doesn't, but they found the presence. And they're estimating now, that still holds true, that about 50% of the world population is probably infected with H. pylori. It is a principal cause of ulcer disease and gastric cancer. It's a carcinogen by whatever the World Health Organization or whatever, class 1 carcinogen. Okay. Well, obviously, we're going to have peptic ulcers, inflammation, chronic injury. They're going to eventually develop like plague, and then you're going to get gastric cancer. And gastric cancer is very nasty, very low survival rate. Anyway, 80 to 90% of the people that have it don't have any symptoms. But the people who have ulcers, almost all of them will have H. pylori. Does that make sense? If you wanted to look at it, I don't know how you want to do that. The front row all have H. pylori. Right? Only one person in the front row will have an ulcer. Okay, so if you take that one person who has an ulcer, does he have H. pylori? Yeah. So that's the way it works. Anyway, now this is well, I'll come to this later at the end of this. Okay, that explains that. And H. pylori has the job. You really, I'm surprised. Okay, H. pylori, acid and pepsin. You can still see it. It kills bacteria, including H. pylori. In general, you can. They call it an inoculum. How much you give? You give 100 bacteria, maybe one will survive the stomach acid, and then be moved by motility. And motility is removed, go outer layer, the motility can move all this bacteria out, right? Or actually it's going that way. Yeah. Yeah. And you see the bacteria there. And if I'm not mistaken, yeah, you have bacteria with flagella. That's the cartoon they're showing up. Yeah, I think the bacteria with flagella are going to be shown in the inner mucus layer. Can you tell that on it? Yeah, I don't know, but you will be able to see it in your notes. But the ones that have, you know what flagella are? Little tape, they use it to move. Bacteria use it to move. They either spin or wave, like sperm or something. But bacteria, it's a common way of unicellular organisms to move about. Okay, so it moves, and because it moves, it has an opportunity to make it into that inner mucus layer. What's the point of that? Well, it's not going to be. You're not going to get rid of it with motility, right? If any bacteria makes it down here, less chance of it being removed by motility. All right. Now, the other thing is they have spatial orientation, spatial, in particular, pH orientation. And you can see here, in other words, if you had an experiment slide here, okay, and you see that and in the middle, you put H. pylori, you put an acidic solution on one side, a neutral solution on the other. H. pylori, most of them are going to move toward the neutral pH. They don't like acid. They can detect acid gradient across the cell. And wherever it's less acidic, that's the direction most of them favor to move, okay? And so you see here, H. pylori will get into the inner mucus layer. Both, you can't see that. That's the antral, and this is the pylori. Okay. Sorry. The antral. This is the pylori. This is where am I right up there? Antral. That's corpus. Funded. What does it say? I can't tell. Does it say antral? That's wrong. Okay. Cross it out. I'll change it when I post this on the supposed to be in the gastric fundus region. No, sorry, no, that's the antrum. This is wrong. Okay, mixed up. This is the fundus region. How you can tell? If you have all these cells, including your bile. Okay. So the bacteria prefer the antrum. I wish they keep the same orientation, but they don't. So this is going to be in your fundic region, corpus, or the acinic gland, and you have the acid. So H. pylori doesn't go in. H. pylori will migrate into the pyloric area, antral area. Does that make sense? They don't like acid. They can move, and they prefer going to that area. And they're happy. They have nutrients they can use. And less acid. Okay. Sorry about that. I'll change that. H. pylori, they make a chemical. They have an enzyme called urease. Never heard of it. You haven't heard of any of it? Okay, you'll get it. But anyway, they make urease. And basically, urease will take urea. You don't have to know this urea gauge. All it does, if there's acid, it opens up and allows urea to come in. Urease will convert urea to ammonia, carbon dioxide. Ammonia, you know, is a base, right? So it creates this ammonia cloud, which also helps it survive the acid. Not completely, it'll help, but it'll still get killed. If you left this bacteria in the outer loose mucus layer, it'll survive longer than a bacteria that doesn't have urea, but it'll eventually get killed anyway, right? Just lets it survive longer. It gives it more time to make its way into that deeper layer. Why am I bringing this up? Urea. Well, they have a test for that, and because it's a major, but it's going down now. In a minute. They have a breath test. You gotta get lactose intolerance or lactase deficiency in bowel cabinet. You cover glycolysis or any of that? Sugar? No. Did you? Did you have lactase deficiency? You don't have the lactase enzyme? You never covered that? Okay, anyway, it's a breath test. That's why it's easily used by practitioners. A child can do it, right? Or an adult, you can breathe into this automatic system. And what they're doing is you ingest, if you will, do urea, it's labeled, the carbon is labeled. The key part about this urea has only one carbon atom, right? So you're going to make ammonia, and it's going to be carbon dioxide, it's going to be the other molecule, right? Those are the only two things that are made. And carbon dioxide, that's what you do with that. Your lungs get rid of it, right? You breathe it out. So if you're measuring a radiolabeled carbon dioxide in a person that has H. pylori, which will have urease, then this is the kind of result you get, more and more of this radiolabeled carbon dioxide. A normal person, nothing. Now, why do they go to the, now see, if you had lactase deficiency, it makes sense. Because there you use a hydrogen breath. But anyway, why are they labeling the carbon dioxide? Why label it? Forget it. You make carbon dioxide normal. You have it all over. Remember carbonic anhydride? How's that going to help you? You won't know the difference between the carbon dioxide that you make versus the carbon dioxide that was generated by an enzyme called urease. Does this make sense now? So that's why they have to label it. When you get to lactase deficiency, there the material, you're not going to absorb it, it's going to end up in colon and bacteria that generate hydrogen, which you don't make, so you don't have to label it. We'll cover that later. Yeah. Okay. Is this okay? Little test. Here's a little summary of H. pylori gastritis. H. pylori here has flagella. Urease will help it survive because it creates an ammonia cloud. Helps it. Flagella allow it to move into the inner mucus layer. It will first attack the anthem. Well, I shouldn't say attack, colonize the anthem. Okay, that area, because there's no parietas out there. So there's no acid. So there will move there. And then it has adhesion molecules that let it adhere, and it has toxins that open up the junction, tight junction. And then what you have is you create inflammation, and this, I don't know if you know what this is, a neutrophil coming in, it's an inflammatory cell. You'll get that next semester. We'll cover that inflammation. And this shows you a summary of this. You get control of damage, a bunch of H. pylori, pepsin, and you need the acid. If you don't have the acid, you can't activate the pepsin, right? So you get injury and inflammation and an ulcer. Is that okay? Now, with chronic H. pylori infection, you get pan gastritis. So eventually, before the H. pylori will prefer this region of the stomach, pyloric region, and not the fungus region, because the fungus makes acid, right? But eventually, it colonizes and starts spreading. Now, this is called pan gastritis. You know, it's like the whole stomach is now inflamed. Now, 50% of people have this H. pylori, and interesting part is humans that have H. pylori for 60,000 years. So everybody's going, wait a minute, they must be doing something good here. And so it's a little black humor, but they're saying we'll find out the things that it's good for when we finally get rid of it. Because right now, because of carcinogen causes ulcers, we can get rid of it. We have antibiotics. The only thing stopping us from getting rid of the bacteria completely is antibiotic resistance. You've heard of that, right? COVID and stuff, right? Well, that's a virus, but it can have antibiotic resistance to H. pylori, and developed countries with good hygiene, stuff like that, less and less people are becoming infected. Can you guess when would let's say bacteria colonize the stomach? When would be the best time for the bacteria to come in? Remember the pH change during a meal? When you ingest a meal, it goes into your stomach, pH goes up, right? There's a good chance of bacteria there, right? Between meals, it won't work very well, right? Because it's a lower pH. And as I said, even with these safeguards, the acid will kill most of your H. pylori. I mentioned, okay, some of the things that are showing up now that we've started dealing with it, and as I mentioned, in developing countries, it's no longer 50%, now it's maybe 10% of the population. Very few here in Saudi Arabia or Western part will have, the H. pylori. And we're finding an increased incidence in GERD. You know what that is? Gastroesophageal reflux disease, Barrett's esophagus, and cancer. These are increasing. And basically, when an H. pylori infects the entire stomach, what it's doing is turning down acid secretion, actually through the inflammatory process. And they also have some other mechanisms for turning off the proton pump, and they're destroying the varietal cell. They're not getting acid. And so now you get rid of this bacteria, more and more instances of these other things which are acid related. You don't have to. Are we okay for time? No, we're over. 1 more minute? Well, you just want to take, I think that's good. Yeah, we can take a break now.